Aha, we're live. Hello, hello, hello. Let me also check the shorts stream. I think we're there. How are we all doing? How are we all feeling? Hello, Sarah. Welcome back. Oh, what a week it has been. Just double check everything is actually working, shall we? Hello, Josh. How's it going? 5 races to go. Banger of a video this week. Banger of a video this week. Thank you for all of your support on that. Hello, Antonio. Very welcome. Don't know how, but I thought it was a little bit late to the party on the Max Verstappen hype, but apparently it does views. It does views. If you talk about how Max Verstappen is likely to win the title, because I'll be honest, I'm genuinely worried that it is all going to fall apart. I am genuinely very, very upset, confused, annoyed that McLaren have managed to do it again. It feels 2007-y. I wasn't even a Formula 1 fan in 2007. I don't remember it, but I've gone back, I've watched it now, and it feels like history is repeating itself. Championship is getting exciting but scary. Just scary for me. Just scary. Waited so long. And I know, like, you can support teams that are never going to get there. Say you're an Alpine supporter. You're just destined to be upset, you know? Again, it's that same kind of thing. They won championships with Alonso back in the day, I guess under the Renault name, but you know what I mean. I think as a McLaren supporter, you assume they're going to be back there one day, right? You hear the stories of Senna and Prost and even Hamilton and Hakkinen and drivers like that. You hear the stories when you're growing up at my age. And I'm just like, right, they're going to be back there at some point. It feels like this year, not to sound like a Ferrari fan, should have been our year, shouldn't it, lads? But no, we have found a way to put Max Verstappen back into the spotlight once again. And question whether or not he can be a 5-time world champion. But yes, thank you so much for all of your support on that video. You guys really do make a difference. Like, you guys watching it early. I know you're the kind of guys that would watch the majority of the videos, whether it's something you're interested in or not. But you guys getting in there, getting the watch time in, that really does help propel those videos further. Also want to thank all of you guys for your support on the podcast is the word I'm looking for. How I forgot the word podcast, not sure. On the podcast, the Crash Happy pod that we do. Couple of uploads on there this week. That's also doing really well. And we're nearing 10,000 subscribers over on that channel. Mr. V, myself, Dan No Skill, Formula Duck, and Mr. Pulse. So that's also doing very well. If you do want something a little bit different, I can't remember which gaming video came out this week. Oh, it was the good one. If you haven't seen it, the Beam NG, we played the Monaco Grand Prix, but the cursed Monaco Grand Prix that zooming past and Mr. V made, like, I want to say like a year ago now or something. We gave it a go, like the 6 of us racing around the Monaco circuit. It does not put me in a good light. I'm going to be real with you. But if you fancy watching that video as well, that'd be absolutely amazing. I think that's nearing like 20,000 views, which for a gaming video on a random channel that started a month and a bit ago, I think we started just after the summer break. So like, I think it's only been, yeah, it must have been the beginning of September when we finally put all of that channel together. We're finally monetized on it. We're finally monetized on the podcast as well. So if you support it through Spotify, that would be absolutely incredible. Give us a 5-star rating, all of that good stuff. But that is all of the advertisements done and dusted. Shall we talk about the Mexico Grand Prix weekend? It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Because we do get so many rookies in free practice one. I'm going to put rookies in a little bit of quotation marks there, because some of them, like Rio Harikawa, I think is 31, 32 years old. I don't know, he is still technically a rookie because he's never raced in Formula 1 before, but he's raced a lot for Toyota in other series and is a very, very experienced driver. Same with the guy, oh, his name has just gone from my head, who raced for Ferrari. He's been like part of the Ferrari WEC program for I think like 10 years. Does a lot of simulator work for Ferrari. Apologies that his name has just gone off my head, but Also not really a rookie in the sense, like, he's a rookie in Formula One, but has a lot of experience elsewhere. And I think also Arvid Lindblad coming in, proper rookie, did better than Yuki Tsunoda. That is quite possibly a damning indictment on Yuki Tsunoda, considering Helmut Marko and the Red Bull team said they were going to make their decisions on the Japanese driver this week. In fact, shall we have a little look at that free practice one? Because there were so many drivers that were making their Formula One rookie/debut appearances that we can see. No, not FP2. Results. Mexico. Schedule. Mexico. Bang. Here we go. Results. Can I get this onto the old main screen? Dump. Not the preview. We want game tempo. Will that fit? There we go. That'll do. That'll fit. So Charles Leclerc, Kimi Antonelli, Nico Hülkenberg, Oscar Piastri, Gabriel Bortoleto. The names you'd expect. Here you go. This is what I meant. Arvid Lindblad. In case you missed it, because obviously it was yesterday, and I didn't get the opportunity to watch free practice one live. I went back and watched the hour again. But Arvid Lindblad, I know it's only a 10th of a second, but it's a 10th of a second quicker than Yuki Tsunoda. And as I say, Helmut Marko, the Red Bull team, they have said they are making their decisions about where the Red Bull drivers are going to be next season after this Mexican Grand Prix. Whether they'll actually make the decision, whether they'll let us know about the decision is a very different thing. But they're making a decision on this weekend, not looking great for Yuki Tsunoda right about now. Although he has had like two of his best appearances in the Red Bull car in recent weekends, like a couple of couple of sixth place finishes. He finished with 8 points in the bag. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that Yuki Tsunoda will still have a chance to be on the Formula One grid in the future. But my goodness me, do I hesitate because of this performance from Arvid Lindblad and the fact that Liam Lawson has looked quite good since the summer break. Obviously, Isaac Hadjar is still the top running, or the second running, I was going to say top running Red Bull driver, but Max Verstappen in a league of his own. The top running Red Bull driver other than Max Verstappen, which always has to be said. But I think Arvid Lindblad putting this lap time in, Arvid Lindblad also doing fairly well in Formula 2. I think he's going to be in one of those Red Bull seats. It's what you guys think as to who will be replaced, right? Is it Yuki Tsunoda that drops out of a seat? Is it Liam Lawson that drops out of a seat? I feel like Isaac Hadjar is the one being most talked about as a step up into Red Bull. So he's unlikely to kind of get dropped in one way or another. But yeah, I could see Arvid Lindblad taking a place. I don't know. Who does he overtake? Like, that's what I want to know. Your thoughts in the comments down below. Who does Arvid Lindblad take the place of? Please no Isaac, go to Red Bull. Look, I feel like he's still first in the queue just because it's not going to be Lawson, right? They've kind of done it. Are they going to just go Lindblad straight into the main team? That feels a little bit harsh on Isaac, to be honest. But then Isaac maybe doesn't want that spot in the main team. So it's a really tricky place that the Red Bull team find themselves in, as it always is. Like, I don't know how they managed to put themselves in this position so often, where they've got 4 seats and still no idea who's going to be where for the coming season. Franco Colapinto then behind underneath. Alex Albon. Isaac Hadjar was then there in 11th place. I feel like the RB cars will be fairly quick this weekend, but no one has quite settled into a pace yet, I don't think. I feel like qualifying could be really quite close, like one of the closest qualifyings of the season this weekend, because nobody seems quite settled in their car. And actually, even though we've been here throughout the 2022, 23, 24 seasons where we've had these same regulations, a lot of the cars have developed away from what makes them work here in Mexico. So nobody really happy with their car after free practice 1 and free practice 2. A few more drivers happier after free practice 3, but we'll get there momentarily. Fernando Alonso. And then we get into like the proper bunch of rookies, right? Taking part. Like it was 9 rookies. Arvid Lindblad, the best of them, but in a Red Bull car. And the Red Bull seems like it might be pretty decent this weekend. So we'll have to wait and see. Pato O'Ward doing the business in the McLaren car. 2.5 off the pace. A little bit disappointing considering how many times he's represented the team here in particular as well. Like he often gets a run out in the McLaren car in Mexico. Does make you wonder if, you know, going back to Austria, not Austin. Going back to Austria, maybe that's why. Maybe not, actually. I don't know. Maybe that's why they kind of get Pato in for the Mexican Grand Prix weekend in particular and don't run him out in the other Grand Prix. But is what it is, I guess. Like, it's one of those things for Pato to come here. Frederick Vesti as well. That was very entertaining. If you haven't seen it, George Russell was actually in the stands watching Frederick Vesti. Paul Aaron, 15th place. Ryo Hirakawa. Interesting that, like, he was there. I feel like he could end up, like, in a spot where he actually ends up in a Haas seat. I've seen a couple of little kind of speculative news stories about that. And they kind of make sense, right? Haas continuing to join together with Toyota and a little bit more of a partnership moving forwards. If Toyota eventually get to the point where they do have a say in who goes into that second seat, especially if, you know, Lewis Hamilton does just give it up and retires, and then Ollie Behrman gets that step up into Ferrari, really easy slot for Rio to maybe go into. Iwasa was in the Racing Bulls car instead of Liam Lawson. We had Luke Browning in the Williams car instead of, was it Carlos Sainz? Yeah, it was Carlos Sainz because Alex Albon is there. Jack Crawford in the Aston Martin in place of Lance Stroll. And Antonio Fuoco, who is the guy whose name I completely forgot, but much deserved for Antonio. Like 10 years, I think, 10 years plus at Ferrari. Real servant to the team in different categories. Obviously, he's been part of the WEC program more so than anything else, but does do a lot of test driving and simulator work for the Formula One team as well. So, like, nice to see him get a run out in there, even if he was 2.5 seconds off the pace. It was more so just to give him the reward that he deserved. On top of that, we were going to talk about this. We've got the tyre offset again, the C2 tyre, more than anything else, like, has just got me a little bit worried about the possibility of us having another race where we see the medium and soft with like a one-stop qualifying there somewhere. Like, I could just see that happening, and it would not be very fun at all. It just would not be very fun at all. I really want to see a little bit more when it comes to strategy, maybe a 2-stop. But I feel like we're just getting towards the point in the season now where that's just not going to happen. And that's a shame because I would love it to, but I don't think it's going to. And that's where I'm kind of worried. I'm just very worried indeed. I just feel like, especially because we're getting to the point in the season where strategy would be really interesting and strategy would actually allow the teams and drivers to do something a little bit more dynamic. It would play into the championship battle a little bit as well. So I don't know. I want to say I'm hopeful, but I'm really not, because I just think whenever they have that gap now between the hard and the medium, it never really has worked. Like, we saw it a couple of times and we were hoping it was going to work, but it's not going to work. And Pirelli, we can't do it. Spam is pole position. Get yeeted. Yeah, thank you guys for chilling out the chat. We'll sort it out between us at some point, I'm sure. There we go. In fact, shall we talk about the championship battle as well and how it is developing? Because as I say, I did a video on it earlier on in the week, and I'm genuinely really, really worried. If you didn't see that video, I'll go through a couple of the main talking points again, but just feels like both of the McLaren drivers are in a really awkward spot right now, where Max Verstappen, because he's the clear number one at Red Bull and he's the clearly informed driver over the last few weekends, it does feel like everything is kind of pointing towards Max Verstappen closing the gap. In fact, I've seen a few graphics since I made that video that are pointing towards, if Max Verstappen makes up the points at the same rate he has so far this season, he could be leading the championship after the 22nd round of the championship. So we might be seeing Max Verstappen leading the championship going into the final two races of the season. Like Qatar and then Abu Dhabi, he could already have been in the lead of the championship. So like, that is insane, right? But Max Verstappen currently 40 points behind Oscar Piastri. And then Lando Norris 14 points behind his teammate. So I don't know. It's one of those things for me, like, I just, well, as I explained in the video, I think Oscar Piastri at this point in the season, the problem is we're going into races where he is still a little bit of an unknown. Okay, yes, he performed much better in the earlier part of the season where the McLaren car, I think, suited him a little bit better. But as that McLaren car has developed, Lando Norris has started to suit it even more so. And Lando Norris is the in-form driver right now. But going back to Oscar, we're going into the part of the season where last year his form did really start to dip. We're going into the Mexican Grand Prix weekend. He was P8. You know, he came, I think the only decent race he had in the final five was in Qatar, where he finished on the podium. Outside of that, he was finishing well down the order. You're sort of P8, P7s, still scoring points, but not enough points to really justify being a world champion if he were to repeat that form again. And then even, I know he got crashed into at Abu Dhabi, but it wouldn't even get to Abu Dhabi. If he does finish P8, P8, P7, like he did last season, I feel like both Lando Norris and Max Verstappen are in the form to be able to overtake the championship lead way earlier than that and not allow him the opportunity to really get back into it. Then going to Lando Norris, I think right now, if it was just the two McLaren drivers, right, if it was Lando Norris versus Oscar Piastri with 5 races to go, as much as people have said, you know, the championship battle was over after Netherlands, the Netherlands were where Lando dropped those 18 points. It's all done and dusted. Like, Piastri has opened the door to Lando Norris here over the last few races. And even though Lando Norris didn't have like an amazing Baku where he could have closed the gap more considerably, or, you know, amazing victories in the last few races, like particularly possibly Singapore, where he was so dominant in 2024 and wasn't able to return that form in 2025. I think it goes to show, like, the cars are in very different places right now. But because we haven't seen that from Lando Norris, even though he's the more in form, he still hasn't been able to close that gap ridiculously. So it's still 14 points. It's still quite a lot of points to turn around when you're in the same car as the guy beside you as well. Like, we're going to see Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri fairly close to one another out on track. I think Norris is the quicker driver, but I don't think it's like dramatic. I don't think we're going to see Lando Norris win a race where Oscar Piastri comes 10th. I think they're always going to be within a couple of positions of one another, even when Piastri is his absolute worst and Lando Norris is his absolute best. I think they are very closely matched this season, hence why the championship is so close. If one driver win the championship, it will be Lando. Yeah, I think so as well. He's just, Oscar's form has kind of dropped off. We've got to the point in the season where it's really tricky for Oscar. Lando has that bit more experience behind him. The car suits Lando a little bit more now as well. And it just feels like Lando Norris is the more in form. But it's not the two McLaren drivers just in the championship race anymore. Like, Max Verstappen has had a scintillating start to this second half of the season. A P2 in the Netherlands, it felt like, oh, okay. You know, he was still behind the two McLarens. It was better than Hungary by a dramatic margin. Like, he came in 9th place in the Hungarian Grand Prix and finished over a minute behind the two McLarens. So it was like, okay, maybe Max Verstappen season's kind of over. Even the lashing out in Spain, it felt like Spain, he'd kind of given up on the championship hopes, to be honest. But now, coming into the second half of the season, like, tremendous performances from him. 3 wins in the last 4 Grand Prix, and even the second places that he's got, you know, it's 5 podiums from 5 race or 5 second places or better in 5 races. And therefore, it feels like everything is going in Max Verstappen's favor. A 64-point swing. 64-point swing in 4 races and a sprint. We still have 5 races and a sprint to go, and 2 sprints to go. Like, it just feels like everything is moving in that direction, particularly because alongside that, Max Verstappen also apparently has an upgrade coming to that Aston Martin car, which seems insane. Spain was a valid crash out, not going to lie. I mean, no. I don't think driving into another driver is ever redeemable. And specifically, like, it's not going to cost him an insane amount of points, but it cost him points nonetheless. You know, if you asked Max Verstappen now, would he like to have, what would it be, another 8 points, another 9 points, something like that? No, he still came 10th, didn't he? Still came 10th, so another 9 points. Would he like to have another 9 points on the board? I think Max Verstappen would say yes. Like, so I don't think it's a ridiculous thing to say. Also, you know, you're looking at Austria, but all of the drivers have had their moments, right? I think, you know, Norris had Canada, Verstappen had Spain, and you could maybe say Austria as well. And then Piastri's had Baku, and then also just fallen off a cliff in a little bit in terms of, or you could say Piastri also had Australia too, right? So everybody has had those moments. Everybody's had those ups and downs. In fact, I think all of them have had 2 sort of big moments throughout the season. Piastri, now that I'm thinking about it, Australia and Baku, Norris, Canada and Netherlands, and then Verstappen, Spain and Austria. Like, they've all 3 of them had 2 kind of big standout moments in the 19 races we've had so far. So that kind of levels the playing field, if you will, over the course of the season. But it just feels like everything is moving in Verstappen's favor, doesn't it? Going to be honest, if Verstappen wins this one, McLaren land outside the top 3, that's championship over. Ooh. Oh, my goodness me. You can watch the stream on Twitch. You can indeed, Sally. Thank you for mentioning it. We are trying to get to 700 followers over on Twitch. So if you haven't followed over on Twitch, please do. We're trying to get to 700 followers on this. The first season that we've been live on Twitch, because it only became available once I'd moved house and got the better internet. Hello, Moto Hollands. Welcome back. Welcome back. How was Max at fault for Austria? Oh, no, he wasn't at fault. Certainly wasn't at fault. But he had like a big moment where he lost points, right? He got wiped out by Kimi Antonelli. By no means am I saying he's at fault for that. It is hugely Kimi Antonelli's fault for diving up the inside and then just not braking for turn 3. But it's a big moment for him. Yeah, I suppose that's the other thing. You could argue that the 2 McLarens, like, both of their big moments have been their mistake. Australia and Baku were Oscar's mistake. Lando, Canada. Oh, no, actually, Canada and then the Netherlands is not really Lando's mistake. As much as you can say, like, well, he should have been looking after his engines better throughout the season, and he's put his engines through that kind of strain, which sometimes then does cause them to go astray. You could argue that, but less so, I think, with Lando. But yeah, certainly not Max Verstappen's fault that he got ran into by Kimi Antonelli. But big points lost. And, you know, again, if you said to Max Verstappen right now, where was he running? Maybe like 5th or 6th in the Austrian Grand Prix? I can't even remember now. It was fairly up there, but not like right at the top. But again, if you offered Max those 6, 7, 8 points, well, not 7, but 6, 8, 10 points, say, I think he'd most certainly say yes right now, because that would be a huge, huge swing in his favor. I mean, you could say the same about Norris, though, right? If you offered Norris 18 points from the fact that he DNF from the Netherlands Grand Prix, he'd be leading the championship right now. So it would certainly be the that he would take those from you. Who's my rookie of the year? Might be a bit of a weird one considering he's right down at the bottom of the standings, but I think Gabriel Bortoleto has been brilliant. Like, I just think Gabriel Bortoleto, for me, has shone in so many different ways. And I know that Hulkenberg is on 41 points and 9th in the championship, and Bortoleto is 10 places below him in the championship. And maybe this is just a little bit of bias from me in that I really like Gabriel Bortoleto. Like, he's just really come to life this season for me. And yeah, he was a McLaren junior for a few months back in the day, so I can kind of take a little bit of positivity from that as well. But gotta say that Hadjar is the best rookie, so that Kimi was good this weekend to help Mercedes in the World Constructors Championship. Yeah, that's very true. If I do say that Isaac Hadjar is good, he always has a bad weekend. I think most people will say Isaac Hadjar has been the best rookie of the season so far. You could maybe argue Kimi Antonelli, but I think he's had a fluctuating season. Although I made a short about this, the fact that Kimi Antonelli is so much younger than the other rookies, it feels a little bit harsh to throw him in the same boat. It's a bit like when we had was it Piastri, De Vries, and Sargent, who were like all rookies at the same time. And I know De Vries only lasted half a season, whereas both the other ones actually finished the season and continued on. But you know, Nick De Vries, you have to put in a slightly different category there because he was so much more experienced in Formula E and Formula 2 than the other two drivers. Like, it's the same this season, I think. As much as Kimi Antonelli is being put in the same boat with Bortoleto and Behrman, I just think he's in a slightly different category because of his age. Whereas like Behrman and Hadjar and Bortoleto, they all kind of faced off against each other in Formula 2, Formula 3, Formula 4s, like throughout their time coming up the ladder. They have done progressively sort of race against each other, whereas Kimi Antonelli has been that rung below compared to the rest. And then Colapinto, again, is maybe in a slightly different league to the rest. He's a little bit older, I think, Colapinto, off the top of my head. But Kimi Antonelli is so much younger than the other three that he's in a slightly different pressures on him as well, being at Mercedes. So it's weird to judge Kimi Antonelli against the others. Of those three, it would have been Isaac Hadjar, you know. Isaac Hadjar really did stand out for me. I know he's got a podium as well. He's in a Red Bull seat, so there's always that additional pressure. But I don't know, Bortoleto just stands out to me. Bortoleto, I think, just has that little bit of magic where I think Isaac Hadjar has been the better driver this season, but maybe it doesn't have quite as high a ceiling as Bortoleto or Behrman. I think in a few years' time, we'll look back on this year and we'll say Isaac Hadjar had the better year in 2025, but Behrman and Bortoleto are the better drivers than Hadjar in, 3-4 years' time. I think Isaac, I don't know though. I think Isaac will have a really solid Formula 1 career, but I think it will maybe be a midfieldy career. Although he's maybe going into a Red Bull next season. He could be second in the championship if Red Bull come out of the blocks again like they did in 2022. I think Las Vegas is going to be the biggest gap between McLaren and Red Bull. Red Bull's car. Yeah, the problem with that, though, is it doesn't really play into McLaren's favor in the same way because Mercedes are also going to be there. Like, if they could delete the rest of the cars and this was a straight run between Lando, Oscar, and Max, and we just got to see those three race over the last 5 Grand Prix weekends, I think it's very different. Because there's also the Mercedes and Ferraris of this world. I think Mercedes will be very, very strong in Vegas. Like, that feels like just a very Mercedes track. I know we're going back to last year and sort of looking at that and saying that because of it. But also then Ferrari seem to turn up sometimes. Like, if they can also just nab some points here and there from the 2 McLaren drivers or even Max Verstappen, again, they're going to play a huge role in this championship battle as well. I feel like all of the top teams are certainly coming towards an end of a regulation cycle and therefore all kind of putting their last bits and pieces on the cars and have all converged a little bit more so over the course of the final few races of the season. What do I think of Brazil, Las Vegas, and Qatar? I think Mexico, I was expecting to be a stronger Red Bull track. So I think Max Verstappen will more likely finish above the two McLarens. But having said that, Lando Norris did top free practice 3. So maybe it will be a better track for McLaren than it has been in previous seasons. I think Vegas will just be like Brazil next, right? Brazil next, not Vegas, sorry. Brazil, Max Verstappen track. Like, Brazil is just one of Max Verstappen's best circuits. I think 3 or 4 of Max's best performances in Formula 1 have been at Brazil. So I could see it being like a really, really solid outing for Max Verstappen, and actually him having a really, really solid performance there. Not that anyone's expecting any less from Max Verstappen, to be honest, but I think that could be the case. Oh, what have I done there? Just messed up my lighting. There we go. But I could see that being a really, really strong performance from Max Verstappen in Brazil, because it always is. And then when it comes to Vegas, I think Mercedes will be strong. Qatar, I think, will be a McLaren track. But I said that last year, and Max Verstappen went on to win it. So maybe it will just be a Max Verstappen track again in Qatar. And then Abu Dhabi, I think, will be more so a McLaren track. But again, I said that last year. And Oscar Piastri ended up getting wiped out at the front of the pack. So, although Lando Norris did go on to win it. So, we'll have to wait and see. I think that's how the final 5 races are going to play out, though. I would be surprised if Red Bull aren't the strongest here. I'd be surprised if Mercedes aren't the strongest in Vegas. Red Bull aren't the strongest in Brazil. Or Verstappen, I should say. Verstappen isn't the strongest in Brazil. And then, yeah, McLaren are the stronger in Qatar and Abu Dhabi. That's my guess. That is my guess. Again, could go any which way. And what do I know? What do I know? I've been very wrong before. Thoughts on FP3 with Oscar being so far back? Yeah, we can talk about FP3. Should I grab it up just so people can see? Because I think I didn't realize, but I realized this last time when I was rewatching one of the streams just to see how I could improve it. But I didn't realize how little people kind of watch the free practice sessions. Oops, wrong screen. So actually, like, if I get the free practice up for you, we can have a little look at the free practice times. Because as I say, Lando Norris topped it, and by a considerable margin as well. But free practice 3 is always a debatable one. Like, is free practice 3 the best representation? Maybe not. Like, free practice 2, Max Verstappen was top. And like, this is the one where usually you do your qualifying simulation times. So I would say like Max Verstappen still, to me, feels like the driver who is most likely to get pole position here this weekend because of that free practice 2 time. But then you look at where Lando is in free practice 2, 4th fastest. Kimi Antonelli actually solid in 3rd place. Oscar Piastri down in 12th. So like a really tough Friday for Oscar Piastri. And then going into free practice 3, he did manage to get it up to 5th and was ahead of Max Verstappen, but still nowhere near the pace of his teammate. So if I was going to predict it right now, and again, this could very much backfire, I would go Verstappen, most likely to get pole position. 2nd place, Lando Norris. And then Oscar Piastri, P3 or even below. You know, if George Russell turns up, if Charles Leclerc turns up, I could see them nabbing a 3rd place from him. And therefore, I could see Piastri starting the race like P4 would be my very early predictions in terms of who's going to be on the top step or who's going to start at the front of the grid tomorrow. And we know that's not perfect. It's a huge run down towards turn 1. So even though you start in pole position, again, it's one of those tracks where it doesn't massively play into your favor. And you can get caught out because you're starting from pole position. But we'll have to wait and see. I think when it comes to starting from pole here, it's like 50-50, right? Well, am I making that up? I feel like a lot of times I've said that, and then actually the person who's on pole position has actually gone on to win it. Will we see the old Hamilton coming through this weekend? No, I don't think so. Nothing. Well, he did very well in free practice 3, didn't he? I still think he'll be outdone by Charles Leclerc here this weekend, because this weekend, more than any other, because of the way the Mexican Grand Prix circuit is kind of laid out. And if we look at the preview of it, because it is so high up and because the air is so thin, I think James Vowles did a little clip on it on the Williams channel, if you didn't see it beforehand. But James Vowles was saying, like, because you're so high up in the air, although you can go so much quicker on the straights because there's less drag, you're putting your car into an area where it can just bomb down the really, really long straight from turn 17 to turn 1. And even between turn 3 and turn 5, there's a DRS zone there as well. You can get really, really high top speeds. But because there's so little air and because you're so high up in the air, the air that your engine needs to stay cool, and also the air that the engine needs to work, right? We need oxygen there to burn the fuel with. You don't get enough of it, and actually keeping everything in control and keeping the temperatures down of things like your engine and your brakes and the systems that we know get insanely hot is really hard to do here in Mexico. Let me just remind you, a couple of weekends ago in Singapore, we saw Lewis Hamilton burn up his brakes, and that front left then disintegrated itself and exploded on the car, right? So I think this weekend for Lewis in the race anyway is going to see him having to do quite a lot of protecting and quite a lot of slowing for particular parts of the track and slowing down to cool things, where Charles Leclerc has a little bit more experience of doing that in Mexico, right? This is the first Mexican Grand Prix for Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari car. I know Hamilton has experience of doing it with Mercedes, but maybe not quite the same. And it might be a little bit trickier for him to adapt straight to it, where I think Leclerc will maybe have a little bit more of an advantage. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe it will be Lewis Hamilton's weekend after all. Get your predictions in, actually. I forgot, like, before the weekend, because I was just having a long week. It was a tough week at work. There was a lot going on and a lot of things to do just to finish up bits and pieces. I forgot to do the predictions. So can I ask you, copy link, to fill this in right now? I'm going to pop it in the... Oh, what have I done? That is not the link I wanted. 2025 predictions, Mexico. I need your responses because we need to get them in before tomorrow. Hence why I don't have the predictions ready already. I'll pop it in now. Here you go. Here is a link in all of the chats. Copy the link, do your predictions, and do it right now. There we go. But you need to predict who your winner's going to be, who's going to be on the podium, surprise driver, like positive surprise, best team, struggle, flop team. I think 30 people have already responded to it, and I only put it out like a few minutes before the stream because I went to go and get the predictions. I was like, right, get the predictions, put them in so I can show them on the stream, and then realized I hadn't done the prediction. And we need them before tomorrow. So last opportunity to get them in, because I feel like if you do them after qualifying, it's a little bit easier, right? After qualifying feels a little bit too easy game, especially because overtaking is going to be really tough again this weekend. If you could marry any current F1 driver, who? What an excellent question. What an excellent question. Because this is not just about, you know, which driver I find the most attractive. It's also the driver that I think I would get on with the best. And, you know, maybe I'm marrying for money. These guys are all very, very, you know, wealthy people. But there's some of them that are a lot more wealthy than others. You know, if you marry a Lewis Hamilton or a Max Verstappen or even a Lance Stroll, you're giving yourself a good life. Not that you're not giving yourself a good life with the other drivers, but you're giving yourself a real good life, you know what I mean? Like, I'm basically a sugar baby to one of them. Hulkenberg, hands down, from Moto Hollands. Hulkenberg does seem like the most wholesome. You know when you see like, you know when you see Hulkenberg with his children, he does feel like he would be a very wholesome human being. Gold digger. I mean, if I'm getting the opportunity to, I'm not doing it now, am I? But you've given me the chance. You've given me a 1 out of 20. You've said to me, right, guaranteed they're going to marry you. Ollie, because he's a nice guy. See, I feel like I can't go for one of the drivers that is too much younger than I am. So I probably wouldn't go for any of the rookies. Like, certainly not Kimi Antonelli. You know what I mean? Pierre Gasly might be a good pick. I feel like Pierre Gasly would be good fun. You know what I mean? I feel like he'd just be an entertaining driver to spend some time with. And I feel like we'd get on. I feel like we'd have quite a lot in common. Whereas like me and Fernando Alonso, I don't think we'd have very much in common at all. Liam Lawson. He's a funny man. Lando Charles. Charles is the obvious pick, isn't he? He's the best looking boy of the bunch. Probably Carlos as well. I feel like Carlos would be a good shout. When is it starting? There you go. Let's get us back on track. It's starting in about 15 minutes time. About 15 minutes time. It's a good question, actually, as to which driver you would most like to be in a relationship with. Especially if you know, like, it's for life. You're right. You're like, you're married. It's done. I hope Sergio comes back next year. Have I got some good news for you? He is coming back next year. He is going to be one of the 2 Cadillac drivers alongside Valtteri Bottas. I would say 1 Sainz, 2 Charles, 3 Hulk, 4 Norris. There you go. Brent has given you a full tier list. Predictions for the race? Get yours in. Hit the link. Just scroll up in the chat a little bit. There's 3 links, depending on which one of the chats you're in. There is a link. Special appearance from Checo. I haven't actually seen him yet. I haven't seen him this weekend. I assumed he'd be here this weekend. Probably is, but I haven't seen anything from him. Who do you want to choose as drivers for Cadillac if Checo and Bottas weren't available? I kind of did this a little bit. I talked about it in a video a while back now. Probably summer break kind of. I think Fornaroli would be great. Alex Dunn would have been good. But again, I think they did the right thing, right? They went with super experienced drivers. Daniel Ricciardo would have been cool. You know, like, again, just going for, like, experience. Hang on. What is this stream about? Formula 1. We will be watching the Formula 1 Grand Prix. Ferrari is strong last year in the race. Expect the opposite tomorrow. No faith in Ferrari at all. 0 faith in them. Here we go. Apologies, I was just making a couple of changes behind the scenes because I realized that the multi-viewer is not working. Let me see if it's working now. Let me go to the scene. There we go. The drivers are being shown. We'll take that and hope that the multi-viewer will do its thing when needed. I think Cadillac, Ricardo Zhou yeah, Zhou would have been an interesting choice as well. I think he just, as I said, like doesn't have the experience of a Bottas and a Perez. He has a little bit of experience, but in quite a weird team in a weird circumstance. So I feel like Zhou, certainly for the money, would have worked for Cadillac if they needed some of that Chinese investment. But I don't think they did. I think they've got enough sort of money in the bank. Perez is maybe, one of those reasons why as well. Like Perez is as good as having an American driver in that team, I think, because there's a lot of American Mexican crossover, and therefore Checo coming in, I think you'll have a big fan base there with Checo. You'll sell a lot of Checo merchandise. I think Valtteri Bottas has also built up quite a bit more of a fan base now than he had when he was at Mercedes. Like when he was at Mercedes, he definitely felt like a spare part, and certainly didn't have the personality he has now. Whereas I think now Valtteri Bottas has had a few years away from Mercedes, kind of really stood out as one of the more fun drivers on the grid. So I think it's a really good pairing just on all accounts, right? As you say, like the only driver I could see being a similar build to Perez or Bottas that they could have got, even though he said no, was Daniel Ricciardo. I don't think there's anyone else that comes to mind that has that same established fan base, really solid, consistent seasons in Formula One where they have experience at a few different teams and have experience of winning races and doing it right at the top. Like, unless they went for who even had like a Kimi Räikkönen or like a Sebastian Vettel, if they were able to like talk one of those guys out of retirement, then maybe. But I genuinely feel like Bottas and Perez was the obvious choice, the good choice, and probably the best choice, What platforms am I streaming on? We're on YouTube and Twitch. So if you prefer Twitch, you can head over there. We're trying to get to 700 Twitch followers, shall I tell you? We've got 681. So like 19 of you just need to go over to Twitch and follow the channel. Like that's all we need. And on YouTube, we're trying to hit 150,000 subscribers before the end of the year. And we just hit 143. So again, 7,000 of you just need to subscribe. And I know there's not 7,000 of you here, but there could be. There could be 7,000 of you here. If you hit the subscribe button now, we could introduce more people into the stream. Nicholas Latifi and Nikita Mazepin. Again, not quite the same experience that we're looking for. We're looking for experience, and I know they've been around the block. Nicholas Latifi in particular had a good few years in Formula One. I say good few years. He had a few years in Formula One. Deleted Twitch. It's addictive. I say the complete opposite. I think Twitch is really hard to use because you don't really get shown. Well, that's why I'm asking for followers, right? You don't really get shown on Twitch, like unless you're one of the top 2, 3, 4 biggest streamers in a specific category. You just buried. Like there's no way of finding streams on Twitch, I find anyway. There's 2 Twitch streamers that I like watching, and then there could be more, but I can't be bothered to search through thousands of Twitch streams to be able to find one that I like. And also, the first time you click on a Twitch stream, you get 35 minutes of ads, and it's like, oh, I'm not going to sit here for 35 minutes to watch this streamer that I don't know if I even like yet. Did you see Latifi get an MBA degree? I did. Very happy for him. Very, very happy for him indeed. Whoa, we just got a load of follows over on the channel. Thank you guys. Appreciate that. I set you guys a target. You guys trying to smash it. Where are we up to? 686. So still 14 viewers required. 14 required over on Twitch. Behave, lads. Whoa. Falcon has taken whatever that means. Redeemed a celebration. Thank you very much. That's what I mean, Sarah. You get 20 ads when you go over onto Twitch. What do I think about Sainz to Mercedes and Antonelli to Williams at the start of the season? The problem is Carlos Sainz wanted a longer contract. Mercedes weren't willing to give it to him because of Kimi Antonelli. I think I think they both ended up in the right place for them eventually. I think this season would have been much more competitive from Mercedes, and I think Mercedes would probably be, you know, you look at the Constructors' Championship and the fact they're only 7 points ahead of Ferrari, I think Mercedes would have second place in the standings wrapped up by this point in the year, if it was Carlos Sainz rather than Kimi Antonelli. But I think when it comes to the fact that Antonelli needed that time, Antonelli is still so young, and Carlos Sainz wanted longevity. Like Carlos Sainz wanted 2-year contract minimum, I'd imagine. I think they've both ended up in the right kind of places. Because, as I say, oh, Jack just subscribed with a Prime. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jack. You can subscribe with a Prime, of course. If you got Amazon Prime, head over to Twitch, subscribe with your Prime. You get it completely for free. It's Jeff Bezos' money that you're giving me. And who likes Jeff Bezos? Not a lot of people. Oh yeah, I was supposed to mod Antonio, wasn't I? Let me do that now. There you go. I'll mod you Antonio over on the Twitch. But thank you for subscribing, Jack. Appreciate that. But yeah, I think Carlos Sainz going to Mercedes, as much as it would have been better for them in terms of the championship, they're probably still likely to finish second in the championship. Max Verstappen kind of closing that gap, but I think that they're most likely of those three to finish in the championship, just because I think the Mercedes car, not necessarily the second best car, but I think the Mercedes car, particularly in the hands of George Russell, he gets the most points out of that car every single weekend. The Mercedes car has been better than the Ferrari car. I think that can be said. But, you know, it's just the fact that Kimi Antonelli had a little bit of a lull in the middle of the season, and hence why Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton have got so many more points than that at this point. But yeah, I think Williams was definitely the right destination in the end for Carlos Sainz. I mean, he's got a podium to his name. So Williams would also be very, very happy to have him on board. And it's a longer process. Like if Carlos Sainz would have gone to Mercedes, he would have only got like a year or so. They'd be in the position now where they'd be kicking Carlos Sainz out to put Max Verstappen in. And then we'd be looking at Carlos Sainz and going, right, he got replaced by a 7-time world champion at Ferrari. He got replaced by a 5-time world champion, or 4-time world champion, 4-time world champion, 4-time world champion in Max Verstappen at Mercedes. And Carlos Sainz just slowly being replaced by multiple world champions at various different teams. But at least now it's more likely George Russell that will be replaced by Max Verstappen in a year's time. Am I only on YouTube? Why does everyone keep asking if I'm only on YouTube? No, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitch. Oh, another subscription on Twitch. Maybe this is what I need to do. We just need to beg for subscriptions over on Twitch. I suppose they're free. That's the only thing that's different, right? You can subscribe on Twitch completely and utterly for free if you've got Amazon Prime, which like most people probably have. I don't have Amazon Prime, to be fair. But I know lots of people who have Amazon Prime because they get a lot of packages. Whereas I'm just trying not to. Who's getting last in the championship? Colapinto. Well, Jack Doohan, technically, right? Jack Doohan all the way down in 21st place. He is not coming back. So no chance of him improving upon that. But yeah, Franco Colapinto's not scoring 18 points in the last 5 races either. So they're both going to be down there. I think it's more interesting to say who will be 19th in the championship, because Behrman now equal points with Gasly. I think Behrman could certainly score another point in the last 5 races of the year. And then Bortoletto, right, needs another 3 points on the board. Jake Sauber have felt a little bit off of it in recent weekends. Hulkenberg's kind of been able to put together some very decent, or one decent performance out of like 5 Grand Prix. So I think when it comes to Bortoletto is there as well. Just realized I haven't joined the members Discord. How do I do it? There is a link somewhere. If not, you can message me on like Instagram or message me on Discord, and I'll send you a link to it when we get to the end of this. And of course, you can become a member. If you're also a subscriber like a member on Twitch. What is it called? Yeah, subscriber on Twitch. Oh, it's weird, isn't it? It's subscriptions on Twitch, but memberships on YouTube. If you're a subscription holder on Twitch and you want to join the members Discord, let me know as well. You can always message me. I think you can message directly on Twitch, and I can sort that out for you. Get you a link over to the members only Discord. But here we are then. We are 3 minutes away from the start of the Mexican Grand Prix qualifying. Let me just turn up my volume so that I can hear what is going on. And we can have a little look at the qualifying board itself. Let me just check everything is working. Live timing not available. Good. Good. Should we reset it? Multiviewer has had a few weekends recently, hasn't it? Where it's just not quite been running amazingly, but we'll give it its best shot this time around. And we'll see what we can do. Doom was removed, but they're still counting him. He's still raced in races. Like, you get put into the championship, even if you just perform in one Grand Prix. Like Nick de Vries, when he scored points for Williams in the one Grand Prix he did that season, still goes onto the championship board. And just because you're a temporary driver doesn't mean you don't get counted in the championship. So yeah, Jack Doohan deserves his place. Deserves his place on the board. I just realized something. Whenever Max gets a more experienced driver who isn't from the junior team, the partnership lasts for a long time. I mean, you're just talking about Sergio Perez there, right? Like, everyone else that Max has been a teammate of has been part of the Red Bull Juniors, no? Like, Ricciardo was. I suppose Ricciardo was there first, but Ricciardo still was a Red Bull Junior as well in that capacity. Gasly, Albon. Yeah. Behrman was also there on the board last season. Exactly, yeah. Scored points for Ferrari. Gets himself on the board. Who do I think will be first out? Ooh, that's a good gamble. It could be anyone, really. First out. I mean, just because they're a little bit closer to that end of the grid, probably one of the Hasses or one of the state cars. Just because, again, like, once the green light gets shown, they are closer to the end of the pit lane. Whereas like McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, they have a little bit further to travel before they get there to the end of the pit lane itself. Red light still being shown. Should be almost at the start of this qualifying session. 18 minutes on the clock, of course. We're looking just for the 5 slowest drivers to begin with. Who's going to be in that bottom 5? Get your predictions in the chat then. Who is going to be in that bottom 5? Oh, looks like the Aston Martins might actually be the first drivers out on there. Cool, thank you, Moto Hollands. I'll sort that out after the stream. And here we are then. The green light has been shown, and it is the Aston Martins, I think, that are going to be first out onto the track. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso not wasting any time and getting out there sooner rather than later. Then Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto, the 2 Hasses then behind, Ocon and Behrman. So is those slightly lower down the grid drivers that want to get those lap times in first and foremost. Let's have a little look. Lance Stroll just coming down towards turn 4. Gabriel Bortoleto is in the pit lane. Trying to see if Nico Hülkenberg has come out as well yet, but I can't see him on my screen. None of the big boys making any moves at the moment, though. Max Verstappen's car still up in the air and tyre blankets on, so he's not coming out anytime soon. Same with the 2 McLaren cars. They don't look anywhere near going out. It's Stroll who is going to give us the first flying lap of the weekend. He's just making his way through to the final sector now and through the stadium section. That is one of the most impressive things about this Formula One circuit, isn't it? The fact that it goes through a giant stadium. It was something that I thought they might try and do in Miami, actually go through the Hard Rock Stadium, but maybe that's a little bit more difficult to do when it comes to the Hard Rock Stadium. But Lance Stroll getting us underway then in his Aston Martin car. Let's see what he's got. Matt says, Gasly, Stroll, Colapinto, Bortoletto. I was going to say Bottas, but there's no Bottas. Bortoletto and Lawson. Yeah, it could possibly be, to be fair. Could possibly be. I could see both of the... Oh, you haven't put Colapinto in there. Oh, no, you have. Gasly, Stroll, Colapinto. Yeah, I think both of the Alpines go. And then... I don't know. Feels like it's going to be a weird weekend. Feel like it's going to be quite tight. Norris and Piastri making their way towards the end of the pit lane then. The McLaren's first to blink of the big teams. Lewis Hamilton then coming out behind them. And Alex Albon. Talk of big teams. The Williams car. 111 points now Williams have. Their best season in decades. Feels like. And I think more points than the last 8 seasons combined or something like that. Now in that Williams car. Absolutely stunning from Alex Albon this year. And Carlos Sainz also coming to the fore. Seen Carlos Sainz win here, of course, in a Ferrari car. He was so fast that weekend. Even Charles Leclerc said he couldn't live with him. Will we see that kind of performance from Carlos Sainz once again? Here comes Fernando Alonso to go faster than his teammate by 0.8 of a second. So not too shabby from Alonso. Ollie Behrman, though, is going quicker than both the Aston Martin cars in Sector 1 and Sector 2. 2 purple sectors coming through from Ollie Behrman as Franco Colapinto comes across the line to only go second fastest. His teammate Pierre Gasly now shuffles in to 5th as Esteban Ocon comes across the line to go second. But Ollie Behrman was indeed quicker than the two. There's quicker than his teammate and Fernando Alonso. 2 drivers that used to be at Alpine, of course, but now Aston Martin and Haas. Ollie Behrman quickest of anybody as Lando Norris then starts his flying lap. Ooh, Fernando Alonso, lap time deleted. Oh, sorry, Gabriel Bortoletto, lap time deleted for a track limit infringement. Lando Norris then coming around the first sector. Ollie Behrman sets the standard there at the moment, and Lando Norris goes 0.4 quicker than Ollie Behrman through there. Again, it just shows the gap between the best and the rest, doesn't it? Your McLarens, your Red Bulls, your Mercedes, your Ferraris, compared to the midfield teams, a lot of the time, there is a huge gap in quality. Oscar Piastri, though, closer to Ollie Behrman's time than Lando Norris's time through the first sector. So Piastri still struggling at the moment. Lando Norris 0.6 up on Ollie Behrman's time as he comes through the middle part of the lap. Just the final stadium section to complete. Lando Norris through turn 15, out of the stadium into turn 16, then turn 17 across the line and goes top of the timing sheets by 0.6 of a second. A 1:17.1 is the standard then for those top drivers, and Oscar Piastri doesn't really get that close to it. As I said, Oscar Piastri looking closer to Ollie Behrman's time, actually ends up behind Ollie Behrman's time. Behrman still second fastest. Lewis Hamilton can't get close to Ollie Behrman's time either. So Behrman's still the fastest Ferrari driver out on track. Here comes Charles Leclerc. Can he get anywhere close? Oh, he's gone very deep as Charles Leclerc through turn 13. It's going to be a tough final sector for the Monegasque. Can he at least get himself in that gap? He can indeed. He's only 1.5 down on Lando Norris. Certainly lost 1/10 or so in that final sector. Ollie Behrman is now displaced by Isaac Hadjar when it comes to the midfield drivers. getting up into the competitive spots. Alex Albon also quicker than Oscar Piastri, slotted into 5th place now. Here comes Liam Lawson to go quicker than his teammate, and the RB cars looking very solid indeed. We know that they go well here. I'm expecting a big weekend from Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar, possibly even getting themselves ahead of Aston Martin in the Constructors' Championship. And there was Lewis Hamilton also going really deep. Very wide at turn 12, Lewis Hamilton. And yeah, the Ferrari really struggling in that final sector. Here's Gabriel Bortoleto, a replay of him. Oh, just losing the car, and it was turn 12, where I think he went over the line and exceeded track limits in his Stake Sauber car. Max Verstappen is just starting his flying lap, by the way. Let's keep an eye on Max Verstappen as he comes through turn 2 and turn 3. What kind of lap time is he going to have in comparison to Lando Norris's? He comes through the first sector. He is quite a bit quicker than Gasly, obviously, but a 10th down on Norris. So it's very tricky, this middle sector as well. Turn 6 almost feels like 2 corners in one. Turn 7, tricky, and then you get into the S's where you've got, a snap of oversteer from Max Verstappen as he was going through that section that I was just about to talk about, through turn 9 and turn 10, where you have to try and keep the gas on, but a little bit too much, and you get that snap like Max Verstappen did into the final sector. Max Verstappen is not quite there in terms of the pace of Lando Norris. Lawson and Hadjar looking more likely to be competitive with Max Verstappen at the moment, but actually a very decent final sector. Save that lap for Max Verstappen. He slots into 3rd place behind Charles Leclerc and a 10th off Lando Norris's lap time. Carlos Sainz comes across the line. He's 2/10 slower than Lando Norris. We know Carlos Sainz absolutely loves it here as well. Could we see Carlos Sainz again do something a little bit special inside of that Williams car? Kimi Antonelli has gone 6th fastest of anybody. Here comes George Russell then to round out the 20 drivers having completed a lap. And George Russell 2nd fastest of anybody. Final sector, quicker than even Max Verstappen, and 0.5 of a second off Lando Norris. That is a very competitive time from George Russell as well into P2. Maybe George Russell's in the mix. And this is what I mean. It's so competitive right now. All of those teams coming towards the end of this season, they know that this is kind of going for broke. There's nothing else that they have to worry about. They don't have to worry about really holding on to these cars for next season. Of course, they'll, not want to completely just demolish them. They'll still want to keep hold of them for testing, running, and things like that in the future. But they know they can turn everything up to the max. We're getting to that point in the season now where everything can go, because 2026 is such a reset. And Ollie Behrman goes quicker than Lando Norris again. Behrman is finding that pace. It's like Behrman and Sainz and Lawson and Hadjar all look really solid from the midfield teams. And again, that's also causing problems. Oscar Piastri is down in 13th place right now. Fernando Alonso up into 8th place. The Aston Martin going 0.3 of a second off Ollie Behrman's time. Again, Ollie Behrman top of the timing sheet for now. Top 3 separated by less than a 10th. Yeah, it's very, very tight indeed. Max Verstappen even 0.2 off, like very, very tight between them. Here comes Lando Norris, though, to set that standard even higher. He now goes a couple of attempts quicker than Ollie Behrman. And goes into the 1:16s, does Lando Norris, a 1:16.899. Here comes Piastri. Can he get closer to his teammate? Yes, but still 3rd fastest. 2.5 tenths adrift of his teammate. Lewis Hamilton goes quicker than Leclerc to go up into 5th place. Charles Leclerc down into 6th. Nico Hülkenberg currently last in the standings as Ollie Behrman finally gets a legitimate time on the board. He's 11th fastest. Here comes Hülkenberg. Didn't improve in the first sector, and that is pretty devastatingly slow from Nico Hülkenberg there. It is a very poor lap time indeed. Hülkenberg only up into 18th place. Ouch. That is not looking very good at all, is it? For Nico Hülkenberg going into the final few laps of this. Yuki Tsunoda also down there in 16th place. As I say, Yuki Tsunoda very likely to be under pressure this weekend and very likely to know his Formula One future after this weekend. Well, whether there is a future in Formula One for Yuki Tsunoda. He's down in 16th place. He was outdone by Arvid Lindblad in free practice 1. It is not looking good for Yuki Tsunoda right now. Colapinto also down there in that bottom 5. Hülkenberg, Albon, and Lance Stroll in that bottom 5. Alex Albon surprises me with Carlos Sainz all the way up in 8th place. Here comes Alex Albon then. Keep an eye on the Williams car. Nico, man, don't blame me right now. Struggling is Nico Hülkenberg. Nico Hülkenberg's qualifying has not been great all year, though, to be fair. I think we remember the few qualifyings where he's been really, really quick. You know, you think of the Austin race where, the last time out in Austin during the sprint where he was ridiculous in qualifying and then got caught up in the McLaren chaos at the beginning of the Grand Prix. But Hülkenberg hasn't qualified well pretty much all year. It's been very, very tough on Nico Hülkenberg. Alex Albon is the surprise for me down in that bottom 5, especially because he's so far in that bottom 5. He's a couple of attempts slower than Pierre Gasly in 15th place, and Albon actually only finding a 10th or so on Pierre Gasly as he comes through the middle sector. So this could be the end for Alex Albon before it even really gets going this weekend. He's not looking very comfortable inside of that Williams car at all. Comes around the final corner. He's going to get himself into the top 15, but not by much. It's 13th fastest for Alex Albon. And he only had about a 10th or so ahead of Gasly and Tsunoda in 16th and 17th place. And surely they're going to be able to find a 10th. 10 place difference between the two Aston Martins. Highest between two drivers of the same team. Surely Verstappen and Tsunoda. Oh, there's also 10, right? Yeah, it's also 10. I'm going to say surely that's the biggest with Tsunoda down in the bottom 5, but Verstappen down in 7th place at the minute, so not quite. Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar both improving in that first sector, and Isaac Hadjar going purple in the second sector. Just coming up on the screen. Isaac Hadjar's second sector down in 15th place at the moment. That is certainly going to improve, though. Liam Lawson also gaining time and improving in that middle part of the lap. It's about a 10th down on Lando Norris's time. And Isaac Hadjar just goes quickest in the final sector as well to go to the top of the timing screens. Wow, what a lap from Isaac Hadjar that is. Liam Lawson then comes across the line 0.2 of a second slower than his teammate. And normally, that would be a very, very solid time from Liam Lawson because he's just gone 3rd fastest. But Isaac Hadjar setting the standard at Racing Bulls incredibly high as we go into the final 3.5 minutes of this Grand Prix qualifying for the first part of it. Messed up all those words. Max Verstappen goes 0.2 of a second quicker than Isaac Hadjar through the first sector. Here comes the big boys then. Verstappen going quicker. Yuki Tsunoda improving on Kimi Antonelli's time by only 0.004 of a second. Tsunoda is under pressure here. This is very, very likely to be a Yuki Tsunoda exit if Sector 2 and Sector 3 are not immaculate from the Japanese driver. Max Verstappen is a couple attempts down on Isaac Hadjar going through the middle sector. Interesting that the Racing Bulls car looking so much quicker right now than even the Red Bull car. Yuki Tsunoda is 0.2 up on Kimi Antonelli through the middle part of the lap. Max Verstappen comes across the line to go 5th fastest. He's 3.5 off the Racing Bulls car. And here comes Yuki Tsunoda then, keeping an eye on Kimi Antonelli, who's 15th at the moment. Tsunoda goes up to 9th fastest. A slightly sort of murky final sector from Yuki Tsunoda. Didn't quite nail it. And Kimi Antonelli, who's just dropped down into that bottom 16, has just started another flying lap for Mercedes. Gasly, Colapinto, Hülkenberg and Stroll also down there as well. Wonder if Behrman can put up another competitive time. He's down in 6th place at the moment as Ollie Behrman. I think pretty much guaranteed to get through because he is only 3.5 tenths off Isaac Hadjar's time. You know, you look at Tsunoda and Hamilton and Sainz, who are 5 tenths of a second. Sainz 6.5 tenths of a second off. So here we go then. Kimi Antonelli does improve through the first sector. I'll tell you what, Carlos Sainz does not improve through the first sector. And Kimi Antonelli also has a pretty scruffy middle part of the lap. So it's becoming tricky for these drivers to improve. In fact, Carlos Sainz not improving at all through either the first or the second sector. So Carlos Sainz not looking incredibly competitive all of a sudden. It was a very, very swift first time from Carlos Sainz. He now drops down to 12th place as Kimi Antonelli puts himself 11th. Carlos Sainz does manage to improve in the final sector, though, and Sainz up to 8th fastest. So Antonelli down into 12th, and I'm a little bit worried about the Italian. Gasly comes across the line, only 17th fastest for the Alpine. Gabriel Bortoleto is under pressure from his teammate, actually. Bortoleto is going to come across the line first of the 2 Stake Sauber cars, and he does improve, but it's only up into 14th place. Fernando Alonso, now the man on the bubble. Here comes Nico Hülkenberg to go 11th fastest. Hülkenberg puts himself pretty much guaranteed to be through there, I think. Bortoleto, though, under a lot of pressure in 15th, and not a lot he can do about it. Here comes Esteban Ocon, goes 3rd fastest in the Haas. The Haas car looking very competitive in both drivers' hands. As the lap times start to tumble, here comes George Russell, then currently 10th fastest, takes the checkered flag and moves up into P2. Still 2 tenths of a second off Isaac Hadjar, remember, who is top of the timing sheets. Lewis Hamilton then puts himself second by 3 thousandths of a second to Isaac Hadjar, but puts himself very much safe. Has moved Bortoleto and Antonelli now to 15th and 14th place. Alex Albon looking to improve. Colapinto is going to be out. Gasly is out. Alonso comes across the line to go 12th fastest, and that puts Bortoleto into the bottom 5 and out. Here comes Alex Albon. He is a 10th of a second slower than Kimi Antonelli through the middle part of the lap. Still pushing, though. It is going to be Alex Albon or Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli's taken the checkered flag, is still 15th fastest. Can Alex Albon displace him? It's coming across the line. No, he cannot. Alex Albon stays at 17th fastest. And here we go then. Kimi Antonelli fans breathe a sigh of relief. It was very, very close to being a Kimi Antonelli out. But Kimi Antonelli is in. Oh, and Franco Colapinto, big mistake from the Argentine. Bounced off the curbs. Did he hit the bollards? No, he didn't. Just over turn 3. Tries to cut turn 3 pretty dramatically there. Does Franco Colapinto. And Flavio Briatore not very happy about that indeed. Does make you wonder how much longer that seat is going to be there for Franco Colapinto. Kimi Antonelli deservedly got himself a spot for next season. Shuffle this in. There we go. And just getting ourselves set up for the second part of qualifying. Max not looking too speedy today. No, a lot slower than I thought, actually. A lot slower than I thought. The other Red Bull team deciding that they're going to be the ones to talk about. Isaac Hadjar then, quickest of anybody in that first qualifying session, is something a little bit special to talk about, isn't it? Like, I know it's only the first round of qualifying, but being fastest in any round of qualifying in a midfield car, always something to talk about. Certainly going to make his way through to Q3 with that kind of performance. Like, he just looks absolutely electric right now. Wasn't far off with the knockouts. No, you're true. It's very true. You were not far off at all when it came to the drivers that were knocked out in that first part of qualifying. Just move this around a touch. Oops. Why is this not working for me today? There we go. There we go. High altitude track proving tricky for many cars. Yeah, I think so. I think, as I said earlier on, I think a lot of the cars have kind of moved away from what works when it comes to the Mexico Grand Prix. It's such a different circuit and such a different sort of battle to have when you're looking at this kind of Grand Prix weekend. At least Nico got into Q2. Yeah, Hulkenberg sneaking through there. 14th fastest. Yuki Tsunoda also managed to get himself out of Q1. It was looking 50-50 at points there for Yuki Tsunoda, wasn't it? Q2 will be underway in just a couple of minutes' time. All of the cars have made their way back into the garages. The 5 drivers out: Gabriel Bortoleto, Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll, and Franco Colapinto. And Alex Albon not very happy at all. Yeah, just doesn't. Has those problems. He did have a couple of problems in free practice 3, did Alex Albon, and feels like they've maybe just continued, unfortunately for him. And Jonathan Wheatley, the Sauber team principal, having a chat about Nico Hulkenberg. Snap at turn 4 from Gabriel Bortoleto is why he did not improve in the way that he wanted to, and why he dropped out. Only just though, starts P16 tomorrow. Who do we think then? We need another 5 drivers to fall. It would have been based on the last session. It would have been Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Yuki Tsunoda, Nico Hulkenberg, and Kimi Antonelli. But who do you think are going to be the drivers to fall out of it in this one? Hadjar first. Yes, indeed. Hadjar first. Absolutely ridiculous lap from Isaac Hadjar, has to be said, but he's absolutely nailed it. And when you get it right, you get it right. Hadjar flying in that RB car. Lando Norris holding on to a set of soft compound tyres as well, where Piastri wasn't able to. Verstappen also went out on a used set of soft compound tyres at the end there. So did Charles Leclerc. So Norris, Leclerc, and Verstappen will have a little bit more soft compound tyres available to them as we continue through these next few rounds of qualifying. Oscar Piastri didn't quite have that luxury, unfortunately. It was only 10th fastest there, Oscar Piastri. Would have been right on the fringe had that been Q2. So who do you think then? 5 drivers have got to go out again. It was Bortoleto, Albon, Gasly, Stroll, Colapinto. I feel like this 5 is even trickier to kind of pick, right? Because, well, it was only 0.6 of a second between the top 15 drivers. It is super close in terms of qualifying. Bortoleto only dropped out by, what, 1/10 of a second or so? Hamilton, Piastri, Alonso, Tsunoda, Verstappen in Q2. Oh, can be out in Q2. I thought that was your prediction. I was like, my goodness. You're cutting through the field. Goodness gracious me. Can they go on to the mediums to Q2 to save fresh tyres for Q3? They can. They certainly can, but it's a big risk if you go onto the medium tyres, because they are slower and the slick tyres, the soft tyres, sorry. So it's a huge gamble to go onto the medium tyres because you're effectively just sort of, well, it's a bit pointless sometimes to go onto the medium tyres unless you are super quick compared to the rest. Hadjar and Lawson then, the first drivers out. Q2 has been underway for a minute and a half, but Hadjar and Lawson, the only drivers yet to make it to the end of the pit lane. Isaac Hadjar just coming down around turn 3 and DRS towards turn 4. Liam Lawson following him along. Interesting to see if they give each other a tow as well. So Hadjar coming out first this time. Maybe then that flips around. Lawson comes out first next time these two cars go. Hulkenberg and Alonso also joining them out on track then. So Hulkenberg and Alonso up there. Top 3 prediction for quali. Let's get to the top 10 first. Let's wait for Q3 before we start making predictions for the top 10. Isaac Hadjar then comes across the start-finish line to start another flying lap. Was first in Q1, let's not forget, Isaac Hadjar. So coming around turn 1 and through turn 2. Liam Lawson, his teammate, follows on. Nico Hulkenberg just starting the final sector. Fernando Alonso now the same. Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc have come out on track as well. Tsunoda, Ocon and Behrman just joining. Carlos Sainz at the end of the pit lane. There is Lando Norris coming towards the end of the pit lane as well. Isaac Hadjar, though, setting the standard through the first sector, and he's actually a tenth and a half up on his teammate through that first part of the lap, the Frenchman. So Hadjar looking very sound indeed. Sets the standard at a 29.689 through the middle part of the lap as well, does Isaac Hadjar. Here comes the Frenchman through the final sector around turn 16 and getting on the accelerator just enough to curve the car through turn 17. It's a 117.1, so not quite into the 116s as he was before. But still a considerably quick time. Just getting one on the board maybe is Isaac Hadjar. Lewis Hamilton, quickest of anybody through the first sector so far. The 7-time world champion looking a little bit more comfortable inside of the Ferrari car. And Max Verstappen comes along to take the fastest first sector of anybody. Verstappen a 27.1 in the first sector. Ollie Behrman now starting a flying lap. Keep an eye on the Haasers as well, who have looked swift through that first part of qualifying. Max Verstappen just coming towards the middle sector is 2 and a bit tenths quicker than Nico Hulkenberg, who has gone to the top of the timing sheets, but is still into the 117s. Hamilton crosses the line, only second fastest from Lewis Hamilton. We're expecting a little bit more from Lewis Hamilton there. Fernando Alonso, fourth fastest and 8 tenths of a second off of it, so nothing vintage from the Spaniard. But Max Verstappen, the first driver of this session to get into the 116s, so 116.824 from Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc has just gone quickest of anybody through the middle sector and goes quicker than Verstappen through the whole lap. Lando Norris just also goes quickest of anybody in the first sector by nearly a tenth and a half. So Lando Norris looking swift at this very moment. Leclerc quickest. Fernando Alonso slowest at this moment in time. Here comes Esteban Ocon. Goes a little quicker than Fernando Alonso, but slower than Hadjar into 7th place. Ollie Behrman, quicker than his teammate by a tenth or so. Goes up into 7th place, does Ollie Behrman in his Haas car. Carlos Sainz goes second fastest in the Williams car. There we go. Carlos Sainz finding the time when he needs it. Russell, Norris, Lawson, Piastri, and Antonelli yet to set lap times. Here comes Lando Norris, and he goes quickest of anybody in all three sectors, does Lando Norris, and has decided to set the real standard, where Piastri over a second slower than Lando Norris. Ooh, this is not looking good if you're an Oscar Piastri fan right about now. Lando Norris, a 1:16.2. Oscar Piastri drops down to 10th fastest as George Russell comes across the start-finish line to 1:17.2 from Oscar Piastri. George Russell, though, that is not a fast time at all. Liam Lawson decided to abort that lap time, and that is why completely missed the apex of turn 4 at Liam Lawson and slid almost completely off the racetrack. Wouldn't have been deleted, but not worth completing anyway. Ollie Behrman, 11th fastest. Ocon, 12th. Fernando Alonso, 13th. And Kimi Antonelli, who just snuck through in 15th place. Maybe unsurprisingly down in that bottom 5 as well. So at the moment it is Norris, Leclerc, Sainz, our top 3. Verstappen, 4th fastest. Hulkenberg looking very competitive all of a sudden, considering it felt like the Stakes Sauber team were struggling to get their cars through in Q1. Tsunoda has also jumped up the standings up to 6th. Hamilton 7th, Hadjar down in 8th, Russell down in 9th, and maybe the Mercedes car just falling off the pace. Oscar Piastri, though, down in 10th place. Still 7 minutes on the clock here for the cars to improve. We will see everybody come out once more as Piastri joins the queue in the pits. Antonelli also pits. So does Russell. Hadjar is on an outlap, Lawson is on an outlap, and everybody else already made their way back into the pits. Piastri. Turn 5, something weird happened with the power unit, says Oscar Piastri. That is not a happy sign. The fact that we have a triple header is worse for Piastri. He can't just take a week to switch off. He's got a week between now and Brazil, does he not? Yeah, he's got a week between now and Brazil, and then a week between Brazil and Vegas. But yeah, we do end the season with a triple header. We've got back-to-back-to-back Vegas, Qatar, Abu Dhabi at the end of November to celebrate my birthday. Got a triple header, and then into December to round out this Formula One season and finally decide who will be victorious in 2025. Inferior car paid by McLaren for Piastri. That is conspiracy theories. Isaac Hadjar has gone first again out of the two RB cars, so my theory of maybe one giving the other a tow doesn't seem to be playing into their minds. Liam Lawson behind once more. Hadjar around turn 6. And can't switch it at all during an F1 season? That's true, yeah. Like a little bit during the summer break, maybe if you're a Formula 1 driver, but still you're sort of in recovery and then training. You know, you're keeping yourselves in tip-top condition. So I know what you mean, yeah, SD. It's a full-on job, don't get me wrong. Lando Norris then, a 1:16.2, the fastest lap so far. Liam Lawson is just a few tenths of a second quicker, well, a few hundredths of a second quicker than Oscar Piastri's 10th place at the moment. Hadjar came across the line, only 4th fastest. And Liam Lawson abandons another lap. So Liam Lawson, 2 laps attempted. Neither have come to fruition. Liam Lawson under pressure now. Needs to go into the pits and back out again very, very quickly. Goodness me. Nico Hulkenberg has come out onto the track as well. Max Verstappen joins. Ocon and Behrman back out on track as well with 4 minutes to go. Hamilton coming out onto the track. Antonelli now joining as well. And there's a little bit of a queue forming in the pits. We've seen over the last couple of weekends some drivers get the timings wrong. It was Max Verstappen last time out in Austin. Remember, didn't get a second flying lap in that final part of qualifying. Still managed to be on pole position, did Max Verstappen, because he's Max Verstappen, but didn't get that second lap in. Then the weekend before that, we had all of the drivers in the first part of qualifying who didn't manage to get their flying laps in at the end. You know, Yuki Tsunoda in particular, one of the big boys that dropped out because they just timed that completely wrong. So maybe we're just a few drivers leaving it a touch too late, as Lando Norris has got himself out on track. So has Charles Leclerc. Yuki Tsunoda making his way to the end of the pit lane. I think Fernando Alonso is still ahead of Oscar Piastri here. And Piastri has got to be holding his breath at this point because Ocon and Behrman are starting their flying laps at this point. Fernando Alonso ahead of him in the pit lane as well. Antonelli out on track, just coming towards turn 13. So Piastri is under pressure. Russell is under pressure as well. Russell following his teammate through that final sector. This could be very tight indeed for these bottom 5 drivers. As we saw, it was only 0.6 of a second separating the 15 drivers that are through in Q1. I feel like it's going to be very tight indeed. Ooh, some good first sectors from Ocon and Behrman as well. Q3 feels like it might be on for both of them. Max Verstappen, 0.2 of a second slower than Lando Norris through the middle sector. Feel like Verstappen's going to be fairly safe though. The other drivers I've got my eye on. Verstappen making his way past Leclerc through the final part of the lap. Esteban Ocon hoping to not have to deal with too much traffic through the stadium section. Same with Ollie Behrman. Behrman being caught up by Yuki Tsunoda at this point. Tsunoda. And Ocon goes 6th fastest overall in his Haas car. And Ollie Behrman goes 5th fastest, but they're in that 0.5 of a second off the leader sort of group. We've got Sainz, Behrman, Hadjar, Ocon, all 0.5 of a second slower than the fastest lap from Lando Norris right now. Lewis Hamilton goes quickest of anybody through the middle sector, but it's still 0.2 adrift of Lando Norris's time. Max Verstappen's gone 3rd fastest of anybody. Here comes Kimi Antonelli to go 6th fastest. That puts Behrman and Hadjar and Ocon down a position. Nico Hülkenberg now under pressure in 10th place. George Russell goes 3rd fastest to guarantee himself a space in the top 10. Here comes Carlos Sainz, who's 6th fastest, goes to 5th fastest, and ahead of his old teammate Charles Leclerc. Fernando Alonso down in 14th, and Oscar Piastri, by the way, our championship leader, currently struggling in the first sector and needs to improve considerably if Oscar Piastri is even going to get himself into the top 10. Hülkenberg and Tsunoda down in that bottom 5 as well, and Liam Lawson has got one shot at this. He is currently making his way around turn 6, is Lawson. It was a 27.684 from him. Fernando Alonso through the middle part of the lap. It's a little bit better. Piastri also improves a touch, but it's not a considerable amount. Kimi Antonelli has put himself 7th fastest. Fernando Alonso not good enough from the Aston Martin. He's going to be 13th. Ocon and Hülkenberg also out. Here comes Oscar Piastri then, and Piastri goes 7th fastest. Breathe a sigh of relief. Piastri into the top 10. And it puts Yuki Tsunoda down in that bottom 5. And Liam Lawson didn't manage to really put together anything. Lawson, 15th fastest. And very disappointing from the Red Bull drivers, really. Isaac Hadjar only just sneaked through in 10th, but very disappointing from Tsunoda and Lawson down in that bottom 5. Ocon, 12th fastest. And Hülkenberg at 13th with Fernando Alonso 14th. Good me. Tsunoda, Ocon, Hülkenberg, Alonso, and Lawson then. And Lawson on the radio. 0 grip. It did feel like he just, Completely lost it, did Liam Lawson. Had 3 bites of the cherry and none of them worked out at all. Racing Bulls slipping all over the track in Mexico now. Bortoleto, Albon, Gasly, Stroll and Colapinto, remember the 5 drivers that dropped out in Q1. So their place is locked in. Yuki Tsunoda also on a weekend that could define his Formula One future. 11th fastest. Esteban Ocon dropped out in 12th. Slightly disappointing that his teammate, Ollie Behrman, his rookie teammate, Ollie Behrman, ahead of him once again. Hulkenberg down in 13th. Maybe expected, though, considering the Stake Sauber car was a little bit off the pace in Q1. Again, Fernando Alonso kind of expected him to be in that 5, considering the pace of the Aston Martin that we expect this weekend. But we go into our top 10. Why is Piastri under investigation? They'll all be under investigation for the same thing. It'll be the lap time that or the minimum lap time, no, maximum lap time that is set out by the stewards at the beginning of the weekend. They'll have exceeded that maximum lap time, but it will be because they had to move out of the way for cars coming past or something like that. It never actually gets any kind of penalty, don't worry. So Norris, Hamilton, Russell were our top 3. Which is a complete swap around once again. Lando Norris looking the best of all at the moment. If you had to put money on somebody at this point in time, it would be Lando Norris. But we've been here before with Lando Norris. I think it was even last season where Lando Norris looked the quickest of the McLaren drivers, but missed out on pole position here in Mexico. Hamilton second fastest, looking to have the better of his teammate once again. We had Lewis Hamilton out-qualify Charles Leclerc last time out. Was it during the sprint race? I think it was. So Charles Leclerc down in 6th place. George Russell was 3rd fastest. Verstappen only 4th fastest. And Sainz in 5th. Piastri, our championship leader, was 7th fastest. Antonelli 8th fastest. Ollie Behrman and Isaac Hadjar, the 2 midfield drivers. Well, Carlos Sainz, midfield driver as well. But the 2 other midfield drivers jumping into the top 10. Yuki Tsunoda, one of the big boys, dropping out in 11th place. And we're looking at this top 10 then. Who do you think? Final prediction of this qualifying session. Who is taking pole position? Are you just going to go for Lando Norris in this one? It does feel like it's pretty much destined to be. Lando will be slow in Q3 and Max will lock in. Max will get it. A lot of love for Max in the chat. What happened? Did Albon crash? No, just could not get to grips with the Williams car. He did have some struggles in free practice 3 as well, did Alex Albon, with his brakes inside of the Williams. So possibly just ended up being something that kept going into qualifying. And I think when you have those kind of struggles as well in Q3, you've lost a bit of confidence in the car. I think just ended up being one of those weekends for Alex Albon. Hamilton will have a miracle run. Lando pole. George pole. Hamilton trust. Now Lando will get it. I swear he fumbles the start of the race. Oof. A lot of distrust for Lando Norris in the chat. As a McLaren fan, considering where Piastri is right now, saying Lando Norris gets this pole position over the line. Think it's a different Lando Norris this year. 12 months on. I don't think he fumbles this one. Delusion at full force. Ferrari front row lockout. Hamilton looking okay. Charles Leclerc looking a little bit wobbly there towards the end, but was again on a used set of soft compound tyres. Charles Leclerc does have more soft compound tyres than Lewis Hamilton available for him in this final run, and possibly more soft compound tyres as well moving into tomorrow's Grand Prix. If the soft compound tyre comes into play like we saw in Austin last time around, Antonelli gets a shout out for possible pole position. Pole isn't actually the best place to start on this track. That's also true, right? You know, starting from pole position, a very, very long run down towards turn 1. Like, possibly the longest on the entire calendar, I want to say. So, I could imagine that starting P1 and then actually being P2 come turn 3 tomorrow is certainly an opportunity. Hadjar definitely getting demoted to Red Bull now. Wow. Behrman. Ooh, Behrman up in there. 9th place. Never say never. Maybe he does a Brazil. Starts raining, but he's the only driver that gets a lap in. Doesn't look like it's going to start raining anytime soon, but you never know. What happened to Albon? Did he have a problem or just slow? Kind of a combination. Had a problem in free practice 3. And I wonder if that problem kind of spilled over into the car during qualifying as well. Here we go then. Lando Norris goes into the final part of qualifying as the fastest man so far. Hamilton, Russell, Verstappen behind, and 4 different teams make up those top 4 drivers. 5 different teams make up the top 5 with Carlos Sainz ahead of his old teammate Charles Leclerc in 6th. So it really could be the most competitive a qualifying has been in a little while. P3 would be the best place to start. Slipstream all the way down to turn 1. Just don't do a Perez in 23. Yeah, very true. Very true indeed. The track time starts then. 12 minutes on the clock. 11 minutes 50 seconds now. And nobody wants to go first. Who will blink? Usually it's one of those slightly lower down drivers. You'd imagine Behrman and Hadjar would possibly go out first out of anybody, but no movement from them yet. Carlos Sainz's car is having the tyre covers removed. Ocon has to do a Brazil 2018, but on Norris instead. Here we go then. We are going to get some drivers coming out. Oh, and I think it's Max Verstappen who's decided to go first of anybody. It is Max Verstappen who's decided to go first of anybody. I thought it was going to be Ollie Behrman, but Max Verstappen snuck out of the pit lane before I could even see him. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri also going fairly early in the queue. Both of the McLarens coming out side by side and just making their way to the end of the pit lane now. Everybody deciding to leave their garages at the same time. Apart from George Russell not getting involved in the madness. Waiting inside of the garage, not wanting to lose any of that tyre temperature from the tyre blankets. Carlos Sainz also next in the queue. Isaac Hadjar also joining the track. But it is going to be Max Verstappen to set the standard. Followed by Behrman. Norris and Piastri follow on behind. Hamilton and Leclerc, the next 2 drivers to join. It's going to be Antonelli and Russell at the back of the pack then. Hadjar P1, I can feel it. He was P1 in Q1, so you never know. Behrman P1. I feel like there could be a little bit of a shock here. I feel like we could see a Sainz or a Behrman or a Hadjar like properly in the mix for something a little bit special. Verstappen then comes across the start-finish line, is going to be the driver that gets us underway with fast laps here. Verstappen picking the braking point towards turn 1. It's a very long run down. DRS open the whole way. You have to judge it slightly differently because the top speed changes slightly here in Mexico. The air is so thin You do get more straight line speed, but you also get less temperature change, and your tires start to heat up, your brakes start to heat up, your engine starts to heat up. You just have to manage that little bit better. Max Verstappen through the first sector, of course, quickest, but Lando Norris is actually a touch slower than Verstappen through the first part of the lap. Max Verstappen getting just a little bit of a slipstream from George Russell, possibly, where Norris doesn't really have anyone in front of him. Verstappen, 29.451 through the middle sector from Verstappen. Neither Piastri nor Norris can keep up with him in the middle part of the lap. Norris, though, does go quicker in the middle sector. And Max Verstappen, a 1:16.455. Ollie Behrman, a 1:17.4, goes second fastest behind him, but Ollie Behrman on a used set of tyres. Here comes Lando Norris then, and does go quicker than Verstappen by nearly 0.3 of a second. A 16.1 from Lando Norris puts the emphasis back on Max Verstappen to improve. Here comes Oscar Piastri, who finally has found a little bit of pace, but is only good enough for third fastest. Was fastest of anybody through the final part of the lap, though, was Oscar Piastri. So very swift from him in that final sector. Charles Leclerc has just gone quickest of anybody through the first part of the lap. Isaac Hadjar comes across the line to slot in between the two other midfield drivers. Here comes Lewis Hamilton to go quicker than Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri. He goes second fastest. Does Lewis Hamilton. Charles Leclerc to come across the line next and goes to pole position. Charles Leclerc has found 0.2 of a second. He's the first driver into the 1:15s this afternoon. Here comes Kimi Antonelli, sixth fastest in his Mercedes car. And George Russell then is going to be the final man across the start-finish line with just over 6.5 minutes to go in this session. Here comes George Russell. It's only sixth fastest, 0.5 of a second off of the pace. So it is Leclerc, Norris, Hamilton, Verstappen, and Piastri are top five. And Charles Leclerc has just come to life here. Looked a little bit uncomfortable, did Charles Leclerc, in that Q2 session, but held on to those soft compound tyres. That's the thing, right? We kept seeing Charles Leclerc used softs, and we were going, why is he using those used softs as Charles Leclerc? But now he's got the fresh set of soft compound tyres onto his car, and he really has clicked. A 1:15.9 is a very, very quick lap from Charles Leclerc. 6 minutes still to run, though. Half of Q3 left to play out. Hamilton, Leclerc, Antonelli, and Russell, the four drivers yet to make their way back into the pits. But here comes Lewis Hamilton around turn 16. And into the pit entrance. It's just between turn 16 and 17. You sort of take a very narrow line through turn 16 and get yourselves into the pit lane. Antonelli the same, and George Russell then is going to be in and out fairly swiftly, I'd imagine, at Mercedes. Both of the Ferrari cars wheeled back into the garages. And again, we wait. Who goes first? Who blinks first? From the 10 drivers that are yet to run out in this final part of qualifying. Here we go. 10 laps left at play. Charles Percival Leclerc is indeed top of the timing sheets right now. Lando Norris, 0.2 of a second adrift. Hamilton, his teammate, nearly 4 seconds. Verstappen, 4.5. Did I say 4 seconds? 0.4 of a second. God, imagine if Hamilton was 4 seconds adrift of Leclerc in third place. Oscar Piastri, looking at the head-to-head there with Lando Norris. Piastri, 11.8 in his favour. Not looking like it is going to be 12.8, but instead looks like it's going to move towards 11.9. With Lando Norris quicker than his teammate considerably from the beginning of qualifying all the way up until now. Max Verstappen, though, is the interesting one. Down in fourth place. Remember, Max needs to be basically perfect in this final 5 races of the season if he's going to keep himself in contention for the championship. And particularly needs to keep an eye on where Lando Norris is. It's all well and good saying he's going to catch up to Oscar Piastri, but if Piastri is overtaken by Lando Norris, then Lando Norris becomes the target. Oof. It is looking very tight indeed. And this is the crescendo, isn't it? This is quite possibly the most exciting part of the entire weekend. 10 drivers, 10 laps, everything on the line. It is going to be Ollie Behrman who gets us underway first and foremost. Oscar Piastri just at the bottom of the pit lane. Verstappen then comes out third of anybody. Carlos Sainz is after Verstappen. Then I think it's Isaac Hadjar, followed by Lando Norris. And I think the 2 Mercedes cars once again going later than the rest of the pack. Ooh, it's going to be close, isn't it? Just got a feeling that this is going to be so tight between all of the probably the top 4 drivers right now. Maybe even Piastri and Russell will get in the mix as well. Sainz, Hadjar, Behrman. Could see a surprise from one of those. Piastri is fumbling. I don't know. He found a little bit of pace there in that final part. Was quickest of anybody in the final sector when he came around it. Still a long way to run. Thank you guys so much for watching. Should say at this point, if you could leave a like on the stream, that would be incredible. Subscribe to the channel as well. We're trying to hit 150,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Or if you're watching us on Twitch, drop us a follow. Trying to hit 700 followers before the end of the season. Here we go then. Let's get it underway. Oscar Piastri comes across the start-finish line. Apologies, Ollie Behrman. I'm going to be watching Piastri more than you. Piastri comes towards turn 1. Could be over before it even starts if he doesn't get this right. No, it's very smooth through turn 1 and turn 2. Takes a little bit of curb through turn 3, does Oscar Piastri. What's this first sector like? DRS wide open. And a 1/10 of a second or so adrift of Charles Leclerc as he comes through the first part of the lap is Oscar Piastri. What about Verstappen behind? Let's see Verstappen's first sector time. Also, just a touch slower than Charles Leclerc, about 0.04 of a second. So it's very tight through that first part of the lap. Here comes Carlos Sainz to absolutely match Charles Leclerc's first sector time. So Carlos Sainz looking very swift indeed. Carlos Sainz actually getting the better of Piastri and Verstappen there in that first sector. Isaac Hadjar also puts in a fairly decent first sector as well. He's 10th or so adrift of Carlos Sainz, though. Verstappen still not quite there. Lando Norris has just done a 26.9 through the first part of the lap as Oscar Piastri, his teammate, finishes his and goes 3rd fastest of anybody. It's still 0.2 adrift of Charles Leclerc's time, but Lando Norris is absolutely flying through that first sector. Verstappen goes 2nd fastest. He's within a 1/10 of a second of Charles Leclerc, but can't get to top spot ahead of the Ferrari. Here comes Carlos Sainz then. Can he do something special? Yes, Carlos Sainz can. He goes 4th fastest and separates the 2 McLaren cars. But Lando Norris is quickest of anybody through the middle part of the lap. Here comes Lando Norris then. This feels like a pole position lap guaranteed from Lando Norris. And it's 0.4 of a second quicker than Charles Leclerc. That is a screaming lap from Lando Norris. He has kicked that McLaren car into another gear. Lewis Hamilton also comes across the line 2nd fastest. Here comes Charles Leclerc to then take 2nd spot from his teammate. So Norris is on pole, Leclerc and Hamilton behind. Max Verstappen starts in 4th. Kimi Antonelli comes across the line to again displace Piastri, just moving Piastri further and further down the list at this point. Antonelli 5th fastest until George Russell displaces Max Verstappen as well. Russell starts on the 2nd row of the grid. Verstappen will start alongside Antonelli 5th and 6th. Oscar Piastri will start down in 8th place. Whoa. That is very interesting indeed. Carlos Sainz ahead of Oscar Piastri in 7th and 8th. Isaac Hadjar and Ollie Behrman will start 9th and 10th. Carlos Sainz with that Duracell battery is doing him well in the second half of the season. Let's round it out then. Lando Norris with a sublime lap, a 1:15.5 from Lando Norris is just ridiculous. A 1:15.8 from Charles Leclerc puts him beside Lando Norris come tomorrow's start of the Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton, then Charles Leclerc's teammate, will be on the 2nd row of the grid with his old teammate, George Russell, 4th fastest. Max Verstappen will start 5th fastest in his Red Bull. Needs to improve on that if he wants to keep that title race alive. Kimi Antonelli will start beside him in 6th place. Carlos Sainz 7th, with Oscar Piastri, the current championship leader, behind a Williams car and in 8th place. Isaac Hadjar and Ollie Behrman, best of the rest in the midfield outside of Carlos Sainz. They'll start 9th and 10th. Yuki Tsunoda was the closest man to Q3 without making it there. Tsunoda starts in 11th place with Esteban Ocon beside him. Ocon just behind his teammate as well. Be interesting to see how they play that going down towards turn 1. Nico Hülkenberg and Fernando Alonso start 13th and 14th. Liam Lawson, a very disappointing Q2 from the Racing Bull. He starts in 15th place and will be looking to move forwards. So will Gabriel Bortoleto, who just missed out on a Q2 performance. He starts in 16th place. Penultimate row of the grid, Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly, both of them looking very uncomfortable in their cars, but not as uncomfortable as Lance Stroll and Franco Colapinto, who will start at the back of the pack. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to disappear fairly swiftly because it is quite late here in the UK. I will see you all very, very late again tomorrow, unless you are, of course, based in the US or not in the UK. But thank you guys so much for watching. If I could ask you to leave a like, that'd be absolutely amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And also, like, if you've got 10 minutes on your hands, hit that first link in the description. Check out this week's video where I talk about Max Verstappen and the possibility of him coming towards this championship, and how I think Lando Norris is actually the McLaren to watch out for. But hit that link in the description. Thank you guys for watching that and supporting the channel. Appreciate it very, very much. See you very soon. Well, I'll see you tomorrow.